Welcome to This Week in Mediaocrity, where we present you with all the best and the worst of the media. I'm your host, Joel Foster, and I never thought I would hear golden showers mentioned so much in 1 week. I didn't want to write about Donald Trump this week. I planned to cover Israel, but like a herpes infection, the Donald came calling again. But even for Trump's America, this week was weird. It all began Tuesday night when CNN and BuzzFeed reported on a 2-page memo added onto the intelligence report that was shown to Trump and Obama last Friday. Let me start by saying the report hasn't been verified, and it isn't proven that this was shown to them. And I have to say that because what the report contains is shocking and uncomfortable enough that I would hate to be a parent having to explain why there won't be a President Trump. That is, if this all turns out to be true. All right, you've probably all heard about the golden showers, so let me start there. The report says that Trump paid 2 prostitutes to play water sports on a hotel bed. See, he is a job creator after all. The weirdest part is that the bed supposedly was where President Obama once slept on in a visit from years before. Oddly enough, the presidency won't be the first time that Trump's pissed on Obama's bed. But the major section of the report deals with Russia's attempts to put Trump into the presidency. It says that they've been grooming him for the position for about 5 years and commissioned a disinformation campaign and a hacking campaign to get him in there. Russia is also alleged to have convinced Trump to ignore the Ukraine on the campaign trail so that they can keep their little war crime wonderland going. In return, Trump would instead criticize NATO, which has turned out to be exactly what Trump has been doing. Let's take a look.
Mr. Trump, thank you so much for being here tonight. Mr. Trump, in a recent interview with the Washington Post, you said that the U.S. should become a diminishing presence in NATO.
Absolutely.
Why do you think that the U.S. should start to withdraw their world presence from NATO, and what would you change about the organization so that we could remain involved?
Okay. I did 2 basic and very large interviews recently. I did the New York Times, which treated me unbelievably fairly, and there was a front-page story on Sunday, I think, and it was a great story, and part of it was NATO, and the other was the Washington Post, where I said...
you talked to them longer than any other candidate, by the way, or on the Republican side.
I spoke to the Times longer? Well, I spoke to him a long time. David, he's a very talented writer, actually, and they treated me very fairly. I also did the Washington Post, where I said very similar things and very similar things about NATO. Let me tell you, NATO is obsolete. It was 67 years, or it's over 60 years old. It is, many countries, doesn't cover terrorism, okay? It covers the Soviet Union, which is no longer in existence. And NATO has to either be rejiggered, changed for the better. I'm not saying the other thing that's bad about NATO, we're paying too much. We're spending a tremendous billions and billions of dollars on NATO.
You're saying it's obsolete, though. You have now Vladimir Putin invading Crimea, annexing part of Ukraine, annexing Crimea.
Let me tell you about Ukraine. First of all,
there are a lot of people who believe NATO is more important than it's been in years.
You have countries that surround Ukraine. They don't talk. They don't seem to have a problem. I'm not saying go in. I'd say you be very strong. You could be strong without necessarily even being into NATO, the money we spend.
Thanks for clarifying, Donnie. Man, if only those countries around the Ukraine could meet and talk. We could call it NATO. Now, the report was just the appetizer. What should have been an earth-shattering, crushing blow to any mere mortal, Donald instead turned it around and destroyed mass media instead. In a single 1-hour press conference, Donald Trump proved to be more damaging to journalism than the internet, Breitbart, and the Weekly World News combined. Not sure how you know a corpse is gay, but watch how he lashed out at CNN during the press conference on Wednesday.
Since you're attacking us, can you give us a question? Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization, can you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are attacking our news organization. Can you give us a chance to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can you state, Mr. President-elect,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically,
she's asking a question.
Mr. President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you give us a question?
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not appropriate.
President Obama...
Since then, rather than sticking together, the media turned on each other. NBC published reports that conflicted with CNN and BuzzFeed. The network said that they talked to an intelligence official who called the report disinformation. Who was the official? Maybe an official from the Kiss Army. The thing is, we have no idea. On the same show, MSNBC host Chuck Todd, gave the business to BuzzFeed editor-in-chief Ben Smith. Let's take a look.
The job of reporters in 2017. That makes me think this is a decision you would not have made the same decision in the pre-Trump era?
Oh, no, I'm not really referring to the pre-Trump era. I think more the pre-internet era. I mean, I think there was an era, and I think there are reasons for us to be nostalgic for it, reasons for us to have issues with it, where we could act as gatekeepers, where we could say, you know what, crazy people are claiming that Barack Obama's birth certificate is forged, but we're not gonna write about that. That's crazy. And I remember, if you remember, we were both there during Obama's first campaign. That was at first the approach, and then you see these things spread, and you have to engage them. And I think there was an era when you would be the gatekeeper for information. You would say to your audience, trust us. We're keeping things from you. We have lots of secrets we're not telling you, but you should trust us. I think you could say that was a good era. You could say that was a bad era. That is not the present day. And so I guess I think that, so there were, no. And in that context, I'd say there were really two reasons that we did decide to publish this. And we, like many other organizations, had it for weeks, had reporters in Europe and the United States trying to stand up or knock down specific details. But this was a document that was not just circulating at the highest levels of the intelligence community, the most powerful intelligence officials in the country, referring to it in briefings to the President of the United States, the President-elect, reportedly, disputedly. The political elite, top elected officials, the Gang of Eight, John McCain saw it. Certainly the media elite had it. And I think, didn't just had it, but we're starting to act on it. Harry Reid had written a letter referring to it. And I think when you have an object that is in play, that is having consequences for the way our elected leaders are acting, you do have to ask the question of why should I suppress that? There are then good reasons, right? Once, though, it emerges, as it did last night, that in the public conversation that there is this secret document floating around full of dark allegations that we will not repeat to you, that I feel like in this era you really have to show your readers what that is in an appropriate context. In our original report, I mean, if you read what we wrote, it stressed that there were real solid reasons to distrust this. It noted two specific errors. All right, but you talk about context and you talk about putting the responsibility on the readers, but at the same time, don't you have a responsibility of not spreading false information? Are you knowingly spreading false information? I mean, I think as with the Obama birth certificate thing during the Obama campaign, this is an incredibly difficult balance that everybody in our business navigates every day. But you're not publishing a false, you're not publishing. You are quoting people saying. I understand, but did you publish a false birth certificate? We certainly quoted the President-elect of the United States making false claims about it. And years ago, we debated whether we should quote regular citizens in Iowa saying, I don't believe his birth certificate. And I remember us thinking at first, we probably shouldn't, that we shouldn't pass that on, and then saying, you know what, this has become a force that is impacting the conversation. The information environment, fake news, are now they're factors in the conversation. But haven't you just participated? I mean, look, the fake news thing has turned into this, I think different kinds of information. Didn't you just, and I know this was not your intent. I've known you a long time. But you just published fake news. We just published a dossier. No, I think that's a really... Why is that an unfair description? I think people love to throw the term fake news around to diminish anything they don't like. But I think this was a real story about a real document that was really being passed around between the very top officials of this country. And then the question you say is, okay, it's okay for you, Chuck Todd, to see this document. It's okay for me to see it. Okay for John McCain. Okay for the CIA. Why is it not okay for your audience? Or why is it, which of your audience members are you comfortable showing it to? And I think when people are, as Harry Reid did, top officials are making, not just seeing it, making decisions based on it, it is appropriate to tell your audience and to respect the fact that they can say this looks like nonsense. All right.
I gotta say, the term fake news got played out faster than parachute pants. The problem here is that no one knows who to believe anymore. By being so dishonest, so incredible, Donald Trump somehow was able to kill the concept of credibility. On the conservative site, The Weekly Standard, they published an article that tried to prove the Trump report was fake. Their main argument was that it came from a former British intelligence officer, Chris Steele, who worked for a private intelligence company. They argued that this guy isn't credible, and since he was paid by Trump's opposition, they have even less credibility. But in the past week, we've seen Julian Assange, Vladimir Putin, Lance Armstrong, all quoted as credible sources. So credibility lost credibility. That's so meta, bro. Ironically, the Weekly Standard argued that the report is fake for the very same reason why we should doubt NBC's disinformation claim. The Standard said we can't confirm who wrote the memos. Maybe a senior intelligence official wrote it. And the rift in the media continued. New York Magazine said that Trump owned the media at the press conference and made fools of CNN. And they're kind of right, he did. But this isn't a good thing. Before I move on, I want to step back a bit and talk about a book, because I like to kill momentum. I figure start with the golden showers, move on to a book review, right? The book is called This Town. It was written by veteran New York Times reporter Mark Leibowitz. In it, he talks about the parasitic relationship between the DC press and the political world. Basically, politicians rely on journalists to make them look good, and journalists depend on politicians for inside information. It's like bloodsuckers feeding on bloodsuckers, stuck in an endless loop of ego. But there's a reason why I'm telling you about the book, and it's not to give you a glimpse into my exciting social life. The main point here is that journalists have to kiss up to the current administration and the bigwigs so they'll have sources for their stories. If they make enemies with the big players in Washington, then they get shut out. And this is what's happening with CNN and BuzzFeed right now. They're getting blacklisted. NBC, on the other hand, may be kissing up, maybe because they got beat to the punch. We don't know. But they also invest in BuzzFeed, so if the report turns out to be true, they also kind of win. So it's a smart move on their part. But what about the report? We seem to be forgetting that we should probably find out if it's true or not. If Russia is controlling Donald Trump like a puppet made of pudding and carrot cake, I'd like to know either way, if only to finally have real life turn into an 80s action movie. But here's the thing about the report. It might be true, it might not be true. Personally, I haven't made a decision yet. But as much as I really want it to be true, I also kind of don't want it to be true. And it's not because what will happen to Trump. I don't care about that. But I'm afraid of what's going to happen afterwards in the country. Because you know what Trump will say. He's already got the tweet ready to go. And Breitbart will say the same thing. Probably some conspiracy. They probably already have the article ready to go. And if you've ever been on Breitbart, you know that those are some angry people. And they have lots of guns. So for the sake of saving the country from apocalypse, I sort of, but not really, hope the report is fake news. All right, that's all the time I have for today. Catch me next week with another installment of This Week in Mediaocrity. I am Joel Foster. Thank you for watching.